Let me tell you something that you probably ain't know before. Most of your major traumas and anxieties in your life right now didn't come from just now. It came from your childhood. A lot of the major problems and issues we deal with often stem from problems we had as a kid that was never addressed, strictly emotionally. So let me give you an example. So me, right? I grew up very short. Okay, I was a mini guy, and in school I got picked on for it when I was a little kid. I had what you call little man syndrome. I used to get not mad fast, but I didn't like when people used to pick on me for my size. So I did get into a few confrontations because of it. But for the most part, I I got bullied bad, so bad to the point where I self isolated myself. I started really focusing on myself at a young age because I got depressed over the fact that people was bullying me over my size, and it wasn't just my size. It was also the fact that I was like a, I was just different. Like I was one of those where every time I tried to fit in, it just didn't work. I was so uncomfortable with fitting in and trying to do things that other people was doing that like I just refrained from doing it, which is a strength as I get older. I realize, but it made me uh, isolate myself. So the point I'm trying to make is because I had that thing as a kid where I was getting bullied for how small I was and I couldn't fit in, and I felt like I couldn't fit in. I spent so many years as a kid just not making friends and stuff and just focusing on me and doing things that made me happy. And as good as it was, I still was searching for the gratification from the outside world in a sense, but I never felt like I could ever obtain it, so I gave up on it. So you fast forward to me as an adult now, right? Working on a lot of things in my life, a lot of things is going well, physically in shape. Another thing that I did just to help with my lack of height, but now I've grown a little taller, but I'm still short. Okay, I'm 5'8", or technically short. What is that, like one below average or whatever? But I realized that that feeling of being small didn't leave me psychologically. Because now, as I step into the outside world and become an adult, sometimes I feel like people around me are superior to me, and I hate that. Now, I've realized this trend in my mind when it comes to things like interacting with people, having new experiences, dating, and it will always be in my mind at times that the person I'm with is superior to me, just naturally. And I hated it and I had to fight it so much because it's like I didn't know why I kept feeling like that. It's like I would accidentally pedestalize people without realizing I was doing it. And I realized the reason why I was doing that is because since since I was a child, I always felt inferior to people because of my size. So that means now I had to address it. So once I realized that, I started doing a lot more self work and working on just doing affirmations and believing myself for who I was, kind of pedestalizing myself in a way. Starting to really like gas myself up, like, yo, Terrell, you in crazy physical shape right now. Yo, Terrell, you got a set amount of subscribers on this set channel you got. Yo, Terrell, you doing great in life. Yo, Terrell, you working this. Terrell, you making this amount of money. Like I had to tell myself a lot, and also through God, which God is one of the biggest factors that helped me. I had to like speak to myself and get myself to realize who I was. But the only reason why I was able to identify this was because I had to go back in time to my childhood. Like I said, this feeling of feeling inferior didn't start as an adult that I am now. It started from back then. And if I didn't realize that it started from back then, I wouldn't be able to address it. And that's where a lot of people run into problems now because you assume that a lot of the psychological battles you're dealing with, whether it's anxiety, feeling inferior to people, having a lack of self love, is coming from the now. But oftentimes it's not the now, it's coming from when you was a kid. Remember, you gotta look at it in the perspective of like a child's brain. As a kid, you're learning based off of your environment. So your body picks up on certain emotional patterns based off of what you're seeing and what you're being told. So as a kid, if there's something that makes you feel a deep emotional feeling of hurt and pain, you're gonna hold on to it if it's not addressed, if it's not noticed. And most of our childhood traumas, unfortunately, go unnoticed because kids aren't able to verbally express emotions that they feel because you don't understand. As a kid, I didn't really understand that I was depressed over my size. Really, I knew that I hated being small, but I didn't really. There was no urgency for me to say it. I guess like I didn't really know how to verbalize it to my parents because I was a little kid. I was like 6, 7. Like, how am I gonna say like mom and dad? Like, I feel away because I'm shorter than everybody. Like, even though I likely thought that, like, I didn't really understand how to verbalize that in a way. Like, it didn't feel like a concern. It just felt like my reality, if you get what I'm saying. So, like, now as an adult, as I realize I still battle with that same mental inferiority complex, I'm learning to, like, kind of overcome that through, like I said, self-love affirmations, praying to God, learning more about God, which I have been through, the traumas I've been through in my life, and just understanding who I am, like learning to love myself more. And I love myself a lot, and I know I do because I spent so much time alone. But it's like part of me still was seeking for that bit of gratification from other people, and I don't need people to gratify me. I shouldn't need people to make me know who I am. I shouldn't need people to accept me. Also, another thing with my past too, I have a perfectionist problem. Since I was a kid, I had a hard time trying to be perfect. It's because love you, mom, love you, dad. But my parents had a lot of expectations on me since I was a youngin'. So I felt like no matter what I did, I always felt like I had to do more. No matter what I did, I could clean the thing, I could do all this stuff, and it still felt like it wasn't enough. And not just with parents in general, but just other life stuff too, what I feel like people always having high expectations for me. And it caused me to never feel like I was enough. And because I felt like that over the years, I started applying that same way of thinking to everything I do in life. So even me grinding for my career, which I have another channel on YouTube that has a lot of subscribers. I'm not gonna say because it's my secret channel. This is my secret channel, feel me? Like every milestone I've hit, every huge milestone I hit with that channel, like it will hit me, but it wouldn't hit me. Like part of me felt like I didn't work for it, or part of me felt like I didn't do enough to get to that position. So, I guess you could say I've learned a lot about myself through just going back in the past and identifying a lot of childhood things that I never addressed. And that's for me to say to you, if you're dealing with any major mental or psychological problem that you feel is deterring you from living life the way you want to live it, especially a peaceful life, rewind time. Go back in time. See if there's anything that happened in your childhood that made you experience that same emotion. Because, those strong emotions, like, they don't change. So it's like, if you could think back to that, the feeling you have it now, whatever you're struggling with, think back to a time in your past as a kid where you felt that same feeling, because likely you felt it somewhere. And then once you find that moment which you had that feeling, scout the environment. What happened in that situation? What made you feel that way? Because like I said, as a kids, we don't really have the ability to address those deep traumas like that, because we don't know what's traumas. We don't know what's building up into these things. So you got to just be able to learn to identify it for yourself as an adult and do the self-digging from there, if you get what I'm saying. Hope that helps somebody.